Courage and honor, cousin.
Into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war.
Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from Beyond. I'm Zeckthar,
And I'm Yuksen.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this month we'll be explaining the 40k universe for people who are new to it, maybe like yourself.
That's right, Zeckthar. Now, the concept for this month's Voxes was established by one of our newer members, the landlord himself, Cullen. He is fairly new to the lore of 40k and just didn't really know where to start.
Quite right. But let us go ahead and start this interesting box, shall we, Yukes?
Absolutely. Now, this week we're going to explain the different branches of the Imperium, along with the Codex Astartes. But I believe, Zeckthar, you said you had a treat for us.
Indeed. Now, last week I briefly discussed Perturabo confronting Fulgrim, but I must apologize. I was just kind of going off memory on how it went down, and I left out a bunch of stuff, unfortunately. So I figured I would do it justice this week and go straight to the source. But before we get started, a little background. Yuksen, if you would be so kind?
But of course. Well, as Horse's rebellion ground on, the Iron Warriors took the time to humble their great rivals, the Imperial Fists, upon the isolated world of Hydra Cordatus that the Gene sons of Rogel Dorn had recently brought into the Imperial compliance. Following their victory, word reached Perturabo that Fulgrim and his Emperor's Children Legion wished to rendezvous with him to discuss something of great import. Though the Phoenician had yet to reveal the true purpose of his visit, he had promised Perturabo that it was wondrous.
Pardon me, Yuksen. I almost completely forgot.
Rogel Dorn?
No, that's what I was about to apologize for. The Phoenician is Fulgrim. The Praetorian is Rogel Dorn. I got that one mixed up a couple weeks ago. My apologies, guys. But the Phoenician is Fulgrim. The Praetorian of Terra is Dorn. Yeah, that's another one of my bad. Sorry, guys. But yeah, continue, Yuksen.
Which makes sense, since he's also called the Phoenix. Phoenician
Right.
Phoenix.
Well, and not only that, but Praetorian is a Roman term for, like a leader, So anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Perturabo knew that his brother had a flair for the melodramatic, which only seemed to have gotten worse since the Third Legion threw their lot in with the War Master. The Lord of Iron counted none of his fellow Primarchs as close friends, but the Phoenicians' adherence to perfection in all things had once provided common ground between the two superhuman warriors and led them to talk as trusted comrades in arms, if not beloved brothers. What the Emperor's children had sought with constant movement towards the attainment of perfection, the Iron Warriors earned with rigid discipline and methodical planning, two divergent paths to the same ultimate goal. Perturabo believed Fulgrim's visit had something to do with the inevitable campaign to be conducted against Mars. The War Master needed the Martian theater fully secured before they moved against Terra, and he believed that Fulgrim was there to seek the Iron Warriors' aid in breaking upon the forged cities of the Mechanicum. If he was right, Perturabo wanted his legion to have a plan in place to achieve that objective. Until the Iron Warriors received further orders, Perturabo intended to humor his brother and listen to what Fulgrim had to say. While making plans for the upcoming campaign, Perturabo received word that the Emperor's children had arrived, unannounced, on the surface of Hydra Cordatus. Over 300 drop craft had landed beyond the mouth of the valley where the Iron Warriors had made their encampment. The 4th Legion quickly gathered in formation to honor the 3rd Legion by receiving them with a vanguard force. Battalions of the Iron Warriors allied Thorikatai, Imperial Army troops stood ranked in their tens of thousands. Before them stood 200 grand battalions of Iron Warriors, 50,000 warriors in amber, dust-burnished warplate. Such a display of might and magnificence had not been seen since the slaughter unleashed upon the black sands of Isstvan V. Yet Perturabo and his senior officers looked on in awe at the gaudy cavalcade of noise, color, and spectacle that emerged from the 3rd Legion's drop site into the valley. Fulgrim and his Emperor's children were now completely unrecognizable from the honorable warriors that had once formed the 3rd Legion. Perturabo knew something fundamental had changed within the culture of the Emperor's children, but could not imagine what purpose the disfigurements and degradations its warriors now sported could possibly serve.
Probably
Fulgrim
looked
met
like
with his-
a terrible, terrible carnival.
Yeah.
The circus is in town. Oh, ooh. I don't think we're taking the kids to this one.
Or worse yet, they're coming down the lane. Why is it they look like circus performers? They're supposed to be space marines.
Ran into the Harlequins. Oh no!
Harlequins probably look better.
I don't know, man. The Harlequins, anyways, got some pretty gaudy costumes, and some pretty dark costumes too. But then again, anyways, they at least look like performers because they're kind of built lithe and like performers.
And it looks like troop outfits.
Yeah, as opposed to the space marine, anyway, just clunking down and the steps, and his armor's just in all sorts of different patchy, different colors of purple and gold. I can play the flute. It's like, no, you cannot. Put it away, you fool. Sorry. Go ahead.
Fulgrim met with his brother Primarch in the private inner sanctum of his command bunker, with an enticing offer that Perturabo could not refuse. They were to venture to the permanent warp storm that had plagued Perturabo's dreams all of his life, the Eye of Terror. Within it was hidden an ancient and forbidden Xenos weapon known as the Angel Exterminatus. It had been hidden in the grave of its doom, a weapon of such power that the stars themselves turned upon it rather than allow it to escape its prison. Perturabo agreed to join his brother, but became increasingly frustrated with Fulgrim and his soldiers on the trip. They were not the lot he had known before, those that strove for perfection. The new Emperor's children acted, well, like spoiled children. They were undisciplined and hedonistic to the extreme. About halfway to their destination, Perturabo had had enough and called Fulgrim to his workshop to discuss the matter and iron out the situation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the scribings of Graham McNeil's data slat, called Angel Exterminatus. Perturabo sighed and returned his attention to the clockwork model of the Warhound.
You're never so certain as when you don't know just how wrong you can be,
he said, picking up his tools and working on the machine's interior once again. Is it broken? Asked Fulgrim.
The perpetual motion driver at its heart is losing time,
said Perturabo.
I thought that was impossible.
On the contrary,
said Perturabo, tightening a screw no larger than a grain of sand.
A genius of old Earth discovered the theoretical principles thousands of years ago, but he lacked the technology to manufacture a working prototype. I have many of his journals and secret papers in my library, was able to extrapolate what had been lost to draw up the schematics for Vulcan's build.
Fulgrim nodded, already bored.
I would have thought Vulcan would have better things to do with his forges, like making guns and swords.
Then you don't know him at all. His love of the forge encompasses all things, from crafting weapons to fashioning miniature wonders of automice.
But that one isn't working? Then he's not as good as I've heard.
No, it was perfect. It was damaged during the fighting on Fall. It fell from a shelf and the mechanism was knocked out of alignment. If you listen closely, you can hear the variation in each cycle of its mechanical heart.
Perturabo reached out, placed the Warhound on the workbench in front of Fulgrim.
I have no interest in your toys.
Listen,
insisted Perturabo. Fulgrim sighed and leaned in close to the table, turning his head to listen. Perturabo's hand flashed out and gripped Fulgrim's hair. With sudden force, he slammed his brother's face into the Warhound. The wondrous automaton shattered into 1,000 pieces as Fulgrim's head crunched into the pitted surface of the workbench. Bone broke and blood splattered, Cogs flew, tiny springs and gear levers spun off. Fulgrim cried out in painful shock, and his captain surged forwards. The iron circle smashed them aside with wrecking ball blows from their energy shields, and before the Emperor's children could recover, the Trident were upon them. Perturabo hauled Fulgrim over the workbench, scattering drawings, fragile tools, schematics, and half-finished sketches. Though Fulgrim was fully armored, Perturabo lifted him by the neck with no more effort than lifting a mortal man. Fulgrim spat blood, and Perturabo slammed his fist into his brother's face, snapping his head back with a crack of bone. Fulgrim's eyes blazed black, and his face glimmered with reptilian malice. He started to speak, but Perturabo didn't give him a chance. Like a fistfighter going for the kill, he battered his brother's face with pistoning jabs until he had him backing up against an iron column. He pinned Fulgrim in place and drew back his free hand and reached for Forgebreaker. The hammer rose, but Perturabo left the blow hanging. Fulgrim's perfect face was a wet meat wound, leaking blood, snot, and tears. His breath was hoarse and clogged with phlegm and broken teeth. His eyes were swollen shut. He tried to speak, but Perturabo cut him off.
No, brother. I am speaking now, and you will listen to me.
Falk, Kroger, and Forks hauled Fulgrim's captive officers over, powerful arms wrapped around their necks, and wide-bored pistols jamming in hard to their flesh.
I have bitten my tongue and allowed you to bring my legion into this place. I have followed your lead in all things. I have listened to your tall tales and allowed you to set the pace of this expedition.
Perturabo leaned forward and said, quietly,
That ends now.
He released Fulgrim, who held himself erect in the face of Perturabo's cold anger.
Your warriors have no discipline. Monsters fight your battles, and you have allowed an entire vessel to be sacrificed in the name of vanity. But no more. From here onwards, I am in charge, and for the duration of this mission, your legion is mine in command. Your warriors will obey my orders. They will follow my lead, and they will do nothing except by my command. If you agree to that, then we will continue on into the Eye of Terror and finish this together. If you don't, then I will take my legion and leave you here. Do you understand?
Fulgrim nodded and swallowed a mouthful of blood.
I understand, brother,
he said, his voice a gargled, mangled mockery of its once perfect cadence.
I understand you humble me and expect me to swallow my pride, to be your lapdog.
I don't need a damn lapdog. I need an equal.
But I am not your equal, brother,
said Fulgrim, grinning through his bloodied features, as though this outburst of violence was somehow amusing.
I surpass you in every way.
And yet, I am the one holding the hammer,
said Perturabo. Okay, I must admit, that is probably one of my favorite passages of all time. Mainly, one of the main reasons why is because I can't stand Fulgrim. I'm kind of like you, Yuksen. I can't stand Fulgrim.
Yeah.
So just the fact, anyways, that Perturabo literally just like kicks the crap out of him. and Perturabo's supposed to be known as like this great swordsman, and like we've said before, anyways, there's that perfection aspect of it. And yet Perturabo treats him like a child here, anyways, in strength. I mean, Fulgrim tries to get away. He's like, no, that's not happening. He lifts him with one hand, which also tells you, anyways, how strong Perturabo is. We kind of talked about that when we did our Vox on Perturabo. He's deceptively strong compared to all the rest of them. It's not talked about much. And if I recall right, anyways, what we talked about wasn't this, but it was when he just casually slaps Abaddon with like a backhand, and Abaddon, a space marine, literally goes flying 50 feet across the bridge and slams into the other side of the wall.
Right.
So he's pretty beefy. I mean, all the Primarchs are, but I mean,
yeah,
he's even beefy compared to a Primarch.
I'd say he's like one of the top ones. Obviously not being Vulcan.
He's probably not beating Vulcan in an arm wrestling competition, but he probably, anyways, would give Vulcan a run for his money. Let's put it that way.
I'd put him. He'd probably be tied for second with Ferrus Manus. I think Ferrus Manus is supposed to be pretty.
Ferrus Manus was supposed to be strong too. Hey, by the way, that should be our new polls anyway, or new polls for the next boxes. Who's the strongest is in like physical strength, and then I'll let people vote on, like you listeners yourselves. But we do have to move on. I've kind of had my fun, Yuksen. Why don't you dig into this week with the Codex Astartes?
Certainly, but before I start talking about the Codex Astartes, maybe you want to tell them what, just the basics of what a Space Marine is.
Okay. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I can definitely explain before we really get started what it takes to become a Space Marine. Now, for those anyways listening, we go a whole lot more into detail. It was actually one of, if I recall right, Yuksen, it was one of the very first Voxes we ever did was how to become a Space Marine. It was when we did Space Wolves.
Yeah, I want to say it was the third Vox.
Second or third Vox, so that would have been in total anyways. It was probably our seventh ever that we've ever done. We're closing in on, by the way, 200 episodes. So
yeah.
So if you want to know anyways what we sounded like way back in the day, you can definitely look it up, and we really go into it there. But the Space Marines of the Astartes share the DNA of their Primarchs, but they also have a bunch of extra stuff shoved into them at a young age to make them better soldiers. I am oversimplifying this, but we've got a lot to cover. So firstly, a potential Space Marine recruit must be male, as the gene seed in the developing Space Marine organs are compatible only with the human male's hormonal balance and genetics. Trying to implant a woman with Space Marine gene seeds would result only in a painful, agonizing death. Secondly, a Space Marine aspirant must be adolescent or very young adult, as the implants must be able to coordinate with the human male's natural growth hormones during adolescence to stimulate the growth and development of the various unique physiological features of a Space Marine. In specific terms, the recruit must be from 10 to 16 Terran years of age, although the process has been documented to still work in recruits as old as 20, as long as they have not yet reached their full adult growth. Thirdly, much like a blood transfusion or organ transplant, there must be compatibility between the recruit and the implants. Otherwise, organ failure may result, causing the recruit to die or simply degenerate into a state of madness as their own tissues come under autoimmune attack. And finally, the mental state of a potential Space Marine must also be susceptible to the various training and psycho-conditioning regimens of the chapter and cannot already be tainted by the ruinous powers of chaos. If the boy is deemed acceptable, the 19 genetically engineered organs grown from the chapter's gene seed are shoved into him, and he eventually becomes a Space Marine of said chapter. Now, when Yuksen discusses the Mechanicum, and more in particular anyways, Belisarius' Call, he'll go into anyways, there's actually 3 more genetic implants for Primaris Space Marines. But these are the traditional Space Marines I'm talking about. They're the ones that get the 19. But now that you kind of know how a Space Marine is made, Yuksen, why don't you explain to us anyways the rules the chapters have to follow along with the Codex Astartes, written by Rabute Gilliman during the time of the Great Scouring.
Certainly. Before I get into what it is, though, I must specify that Gilliman originally made it so to break up the legions into chapters. That way no one entity could have too vast of a force to start another heresy, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was especially worried about the fact that, especially because the Emperor was gone at this point. I mean,
yeah.
He was still with them, but gone. Kind of thing.
Mind you, if you think about it, even with him being there, that didn't stop the Horus Heresy from occurring. But
what does the Codex Astartes entitle? Well, okay, before we get into that anyways, also keep in mind that he wrote this during the time of the Great Scouring. So the Great Scouring took place right after the Siege of Terra. It's where everybody was super pissed off and like, we're going to go murder some Chaos people. And they all pretty much left Terra to go murder people. Some people should have been
didn't look at me right. Chaos, kill him.
The problem with the Great Scouring is, and this kind of gets brushed over a lot of times, is that some of them definitely needed to be murdered. Other ones, not so much. But because something happened along the lines, like, for instance, Chaos showed up on their planet, like, Horus showed up on their planet, and it's like, you guys serve me now, or we kill all of you. And they said, you know what? I don't want to die today. Sure, I'll go ahead and make you pitchforks. Or, not even weapons. It could be just, they could be making bolts.
Lanyards.
Doesn't matter to the Imperium. When they came floating through, they were just like, oh, Horus had this planet, bomb the crap out of it.
And then move on.
They
didn't do Exterminatus. They just completely annihilated everybody on it. Instead of just bombing it, nuking it.
And a lot of times, anyways, it was just somebody's word against somebody else's. So it was a very chaotic time. But one of the things that is very important about this, timeline-wise, is that at least, anyways, all the Chaos Space Marines that were still alive after the Siege of Terra and their leaders, the Primarchs, all eventually ended up in the Eye of Terror. Other than maybe Alfarius or Omegon, whoever was still alive.
Or we don't know. It's all up in the air.
He might not. But everybody else, anyways, schlunked into the Eye of Terror.
But that's depending on where you would consider chaotic. But that's beside the point. Alpha Legion is one of the few groups that did not run into the Eye of Terror.
Right. That's what I just said.
Also.
So, but why don't you explain, anyways, why this was so important and why Rabute Gilliman wrote this down? The Codex Astartes.
So, one of the reasons was to reduce the chances of corruption via the gene seed, recruitment, training, and sharing gene seed amongst chapters. Methods were more stringent care of gene seed, better security, constant scrutinization for defects, analysis of gene seeds used for each newly constructed chapter. Recruitment and training would be more precise and slower than before so as to catch any defects. As a final safeguard, Gilliman tasked the Adeptus Terra on Terra with setting up and maintaining genetic banks to produce and store tithes of Space Marine gene seed. These banks were to provide all new gene seed for subsequent foundings of Space Marine chapters. By taking direct control of these genetic tithes, the Adeptus Terra could ultimately control the Space Marines, thus ensuring that normal humans and not the transhuman Astartes remained the true rulers of the Imperium. They alone have the power to destroy or create Space Marine armies at will. The Codex outlined a new, more measured process for Space Marine selection and recruitment and insisted that each newly created successor chapter would tithe 5% of its genetic material to the Adeptus Terra and the Adeptus Mechanicus for testing and monitoring. It also decreed that only the Emperor himself, through the auspices of the High Lords of Terra, would ever again be able to order the creation of a new Space Marine chapter. There are up to 27 foundings over the ages.
What do you mean by foundings?
A founding is where they end up breaking apart chapters that exist into further chapters. So, for example...
that's what they did with the first one. I don't know if they've done that with every single founding.
No, but they do break up some of them.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm saying is I don't know necessarily... I know with at least the first foundings, they broke those all up for the second founding. Because, well, at that point anyways, they were all Legion at that point, too.
Yeah.
So the successor foundings after that anyways, I think sometimes they just went, ah! They just made new chapters through the stuff that they had. But but there have been, I know, what is it? You said 27? I think it's way past that at this point. I think we're in the 30s.
No, there's 27. It's just like there's those cases where it's like, yeah, well, there's only 27. Well, some of those happened later than when it originally was. Number 2, break up the legions into smaller chapters, restricting how many people one individual could control. Each chapter was to have up to 1,000 Space Marines. Each chapter was to have a maximum of 10 companies, each contain 100 Marines, plus a captain, apothecary, standard bearer, and chaplain. Outside the company-level organization, each chapter has an armory consisting of the chapter's tech marines, main battle tanks, and other armored vehicles, a librarium consisting of the chapter's librarians, a chapter fleet, and the chapter master, plus various headquarters staff and the chapter servitors and human chapter serfs. It sounds like it'd be more than 1,000.
I do not believe, anyways, chapter serfs are part of that 1,000. I think it's literally, anyways, just the Space Marines, correct?
Yes, but as we know, now there's some adjustments, for example, when it came to scouts.
With the neophytes and and stuff like that. So
and these command squads generally can tend to be bigger than they're supposed to be. You know?
So these are the official rules, but at the same time, Gilliman also understood, anyways, you can't be super regimented when you're talking about like 1,000 Space Marines in one company or chapter. So he came up with some guidelines along with it, so that there was ways that you could kind of get around it. Like, for instance, anyways, if you were on Crusade, you can have significantly more Space Marines because you're going to be going through more of them. That was the thought process behind it. So that way, anyways, it's like, we have to have exactly 1,000, but your guys are dying by the flocks. So
yeah,
it's like all of a sudden we just have 50. That's one thing, anyways, I kind of wanted to bring up. The other thing is that this kind of shows you how many Space Marines died during the Horus Heresy. Because he's talking about breaking these guys up into 1,000 chapters now, or 1,000 people per chapter. The Ultramarines, how many foundings in the second founding, anyways, for the Ultramarines?
Let me see.
So the Ultramarines,
they had the largest one out of all.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, anyways, when we talk about Gilliman, he kind of put the Ultramarines into, overdrive, anyways, of mass production. He had, by the time, anyways, the Horus Heresy started, 250,000 Space Marines that were just Ultramarines. And he's wanting to break that into 1,000 Space Marine chapters. So what is the grand total of how many foundings did he have afterwards?
There were 18 second foundings.
And so, like we said, anyways, they had originally, before the Horus Heresy, they had over 250,000 Space Marines. And they were going to split the Ultramarines into 18 different foundings after that. So you're talking about all that was left was 19,000 Space Marines.
About.
Right? Anyways. Yeah, roughly anyway. So I'd probably say more like 20. But even still, you went from 250 to 20. That kind of shows you, anyways, how devastating the Horus Heresy was.
And also to put in perspective, they weren't involved with either of the massacres either. So yeah, they're just like,
I mean, you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of Space Marines, anyways, for all these different these different foundings. And like, for instance, and most of them, anyways, I mean, I'm guessing, anyways, the Ultramarines, they had a whole lot more foundings than anybody else in that second founding, correct?
Oh yeah. I
mean, Dorn's guys, I think, only got what, 3, 4?
They got 4 or 5. It's up to debate.
So you're talking about like 6,000 Space Marines left with Dorn's guys. Now, mind you, anyways, Dorn also went through the Iron Cage, which it was their own can of worms. But I mean, you're talking about, that's a ridiculous amount of just. You got to the point where Vulcan, quite frankly, anyways, said that he couldn't actually split up his legion because he didn't have enough guys.
Yeah.
That's insane. That means he went from like hundreds of thousands of Space Marines down to like 50.
Yeah.
It was just Bob, Steve, and Max. That's all he had left.
When he ended up going to Terra, I think he only had like 2 people with him.
That helped him, yeah. And if I recall right, anyways, the Iron Hands and the Raven Guard had more troops, but not much.
And they still got broke into secondary foundings too.
Yeah, but there weren't a whole lot of them, right? You're talking about
there was 3 for the Raven Guard.
So 4,000 for them.
And 2 for the Iron Hands.
So that's 3. That's insane. Yeah. Just that many people died in the Horus Heresy is ridiculous. But sorry to bring it up. If I recall right, though, there was one group that said, "Screw you, Gilliman. We're not doing this." Other than, like we just already explained, anyways, the Salamanders, Vulcan said we can't do this, and Gilliman, which is like, but you have to. And he's like, I can't. There's like 50 of us left. We cannot split it into other 1,000 people company because we don't have thousands left.
We don't have 8,000 left, for that matter.
It's just Bob. It's the only guy left. Okay, fine. But who's the group, anyways, that just pretty much gave Gilman the middle finger and said, we're not doing this?
Oh, that would be the Space Wolves.
Yes.
Later on, they did try to appease with the secondary founding, but it didn't work out anyways. They ended up being... Yeah.
Well, how are they set up now?
They're set up with great companies instead of companies, and each one of the great companies has its own system that they apply to it instead of specifically regimented in particular ways. Because another thing about the Codex Astartes is they specify the tactical roles that need to be in each of these companies.
Right. Which the Space Wolves don't do.
Wolf Lords just go, okay, I like my tanks. So we're going to have a lot of tanks in this company.
The next guy's like, you know what? I like cavalry. And so he just hires a bunch of wolf riders. So hires a relative term. That's not probably the right term. But
Wolf cavalry.
Yeah. Not only that, but it also means anyways that the Space Wolves have significantly more than 1,000 people working for them.
Yeah.
But okay, so we kind of moved on that. But by the way, this is the most important part about the Codex Astartes, was the fact that they broke down the legions so they were no longer legion and turned them into chapters.
Right. Which have a legion.
Right. So that way, and the reason why Gilliman did this was so that if someone got a hold of, instead of, like, for instance, a legion, if somebody gets a hold of a legion, like 100,000 Space Marines, then the crap has really hit the fan, kind of thing. And it really requires something to be dealt with. If just 1,000 Space Marines turn to chaos, it's not as much of a big deal, especially with billions upon billions of humans. So I'm like, we can deal with that, as opposed to 100,000. But okay, so what was the next thing, anyways, the Codex Astartes was important for?
So the third one, which I kind of briefly touched on, is the fact that it further defines the tactical roles, equipment specs, and uniform identification markings of the Space Marines. With the passage of many Terran centuries, some chapters have strayed from the strict letter of the Codex, in some cases rightly so, introducing unique variations on its teachings, but remain broadly faithful to Gilliman's basic principles.
I remember the first time we talked about this, he went on and on about the different paintings. Different colors. The captain's supposed to have red on his helmet. I don't care.
No, that's Sergeant. Captains are like white, I think.
Okay. Is there anything else?
If this wasn't enough, they also go over tactics and fleet composition. But since the aforementioned Primarch Space Marines and Gilliman's rebirth, which we kind of touched on, Gilliman has restructured his guidelines, changing a few things to make the Space Marines even more streamlined. One of these changes that has really caused a ruckus is the allowance of having more than 100 Marines per company, as was expected before. This doesn't mean a chapter master can go all gung-ho and start a legion. It just means they can strengthen particular companies by weakening others.
Now, before we move on, we figured anyways we should do our due process anyways and talk a little bit about some of the Space Marines, the ones that we like the most and the ones that are, quite frankly, popular. And starting off, quite frankly, anyways, with the Space Wolves. Now, I know I'm going to be talking about it quite a bit anyways, but I'm going to let Yuksen, because I got to talk about Lehman Russ quite a bit, and and we kind of talked quite a bit anyways about the Space Wolves already. Well, we's a relative verb. I got to talk a lot about the Space Wolves. I want to give Yuksen, I want you, because you really love the Space Wolves too, have at it, sir.
Okay, so the Space Wolves come from Fenris. And as we've mentioned before, their Primarch was Lehman Russ. The current chapter master is Logan Grimnar.
Boy. You can't have that axe. It's part of chaos. I want the axe. Okay, fine.
And what we'll do is we'll reforge it. That is the excuse. That's the loophole right there. We
Shove a bunch of
reforge
ruins
that.
into it, and it'll be fine. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Did we figure out that he's probably the second oldest chapter master?
I believe so. That is still alive today in
Yeah.
the 42nd millennium. Yes. The oldest we'll talk about later. Anyways, that's Dante, the guy that really wants to die, and he just can't. He's too awesome. But yeah, Grimnar is probably. All right, correct me if I'm wrong. Grimnar is kind of like the old crusty curmudgeon-y grandpa dude, anyways, that you know, that was like, well, back in my day, we used to kill people with an axe, you know? But still, anyways, as opposed to the old grandpa that you knew back in the day, anyways, that used to fight people, he still is like functional. He can still murder people. He's got an axe.
Still fight like he fought back in the day.
Yeah. He's got an axe. He's got a chariot that giant Fenrisian wolves cart him along. Anyways, he's space Viking. I mean,
personified.
Okay, so real quick before I let you get talking, I do have to tell this story real quick, anyways, about Grimnar. Grimnar, when he first came into being as the Space Wolves chapter master,
Or Great Wolf.
Yeah, to become the Great Wolf. Yeah, that's what they're known as, the chapter master. He's technically isn't a chapter master at all. He's just the Great Wolf of the Great Lords of the Space Wolves. So, but when he got to that position, one of the first things that he had to deal with was the First War of Armageddon. Had to fight Angron. That was fun. Him and a bunch of Grey Knights. He ended up successfully saving pretty much Armageddon from a huge chaos incursion. It's not talked about much because of what took place after that. So the Inquisition showed up. They said, well done, Logan Grimnar. We'll take it from here. And Grimnar is like, cool. Just out of curiosity, and he's about to take off. And it was like he was about to leave the spaceship, and like the fingers come back into the war. And he's like, oh, by the way, real quick, anyways, what's going to happen to the human populace on Armageddon? I mean, they fought really well with us, and maybe we should give them a few awards, you know, kind of thing. And the Inquisition went, oh, well, this is a little awkward. We were going to kill them all. And Logan was like, oh, well, see, that's a problem with me. That's not going to happen. And the Inquisition is like, oh, yes, it's going to happen because we can do anything we want. Logan's response was, well, no, you're not. Watch me escape with all of them. And that's kind of what he did. He just like literally took everybody from Armageddon and then he escaped. And it started this whole war against the Imperium versus the Space Wolves. And
to tell you the truth,
the Inquisition didn't do very well with it.
that was probably worse technically than having, though. It turned out that more damage was done this way than actually just let him kill, I believe, we find out. Because every single time that they drop some people off, the Inquisitors would go, okay, we got to annihilate pretty much everybody on this planet.
They had to exterminate
everybody on that planet.
Just to prove a point, they just kept exterminating every planet that they went to.
So, in effect, even though Grimnar saved a lot of these people, a lot of them still died, and more innocents died on top of it.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put that at Grimnar's feet. That's the Inquisition's.
Yeah.
Because they're morons. We'll talk about the Inquisition later, but to boil it down, what ends up happening is that the Inquisition gets tired of trying to chase. They just can't get Grimnar. They keep trying. They even set up traps to like, we will be honor bound to come to a peace accord with you. And so Grimnar shows up and they literally kill all of his buddies and his ship's the only one left. And they're like, so you have to anyways follow the instructions of the Imperium, right? And Grimnar anyways scowls and roars at them and he goes, you betrayed us, and murders a whole bunch of people on his ship and then leaves and escapes. So the Inquisitor that's in charge has had enough, and he shows up on Fenris. And that's where he runs into the guy that you probably want to talk about, and I'll go ahead and let you talk about, and then I'll finish my story. Tell us about Bjorn the Fell-Handed.
Okay, so he was originally called Bjorn the Fell-Handed, then he became Bjorn the One-Handed because at some point he ended up getting his hand chopped off.
Okay, I knew it. He did lose his hand at one point. I just had the wrong time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. After that, he ended up becoming the first Great Wolf after Leman Russ went on the Great Hunt. And one of the things that he's always been disappointed at was the fact that he was the one that was left behind at all of them.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but he was disappointed that he was the guy that got left behind because he was one of the few guys that, if I recall right, anyways, came from Finner. He was one of the beginning guys, right?
Yeah, he was one of the firsts, I think.
Yeah, so
he might not have been the first,
right?
The first,
very close.
One of the first.
But he was probably one of the second guys that, anyways, logged in, anyways, as a Space Wolf. And he was one of the few that was left after the Horus Heresy that was stuck there because Leman Russ took everybody else with him that were all the old guys. The old hats he took with him, other than Bjorn. But there was good reason for that. It's because Bjorn actually led as the Great Wolf, anyways, very well for years.
Yeah, for a long time, I think it was. And then he finally gave it up after he suffered an injury. Ended up being put in a dreadnought. He's like, yeah, I better probably pass it off to somebody.
Yeah, they still wanted him to run the companies after he was put into a dreadnought. And he said, no, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, anyways, why don't you go ahead and explain to the people what a dreadnought is?
Okay, dreadnought.
Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and do that real quick, anyways, and then you can continue on with Bjorn's story. So, a dreadnought is if you're a space marine, you are like mortally wounded in combat, but you were like a great hero for the chapter. They shove you in the sarcophagus, which is shoved into this giant mech warrior, and so therefore, anyways, you live. You become immortal, but you can't feel anything. You're just like this. You're kind of like this brain in a jar that is attached to a giant mech warrior, and of war, and they will normally, anyways, to keep their dreadnoughts sane, they will put them to sleep for many thousands of years and then wake them up. Bjorn's kind of actually an exception to that. Yeah, they need them in fighting. Bjorn's kind of an exception of that. But sorry, go ahead. Just need to explain.
Yeah, there's two reasons why he's sort of exception to that. One is the fact that he's still revered so much, that he has so much weight that it's just like, even the chapter masters go, I'll listen to your advice. I'll actually take some stock in what you say.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to explain. With
great reverence. Let's just put it that way. Great reverence to him. And
tie me in, and by the way, anyways, back into my story that I was talking about with Grimnar. You have to explain how that works out, anyways, with the Inquisitor.
Oh yeah,
story. But yeah. Sorry, but go ahead.
Well, there's two times where it's. So
but not right now. Go ahead and finish Bjorn's story.
So even when he isn't required, like for combat, one of the things that they'll do is they'll wake him up every, I think it's like 1,000 years or something like that, so he can pass on wisdom and stuff and real stories, not like stories passed down through the generations, actual stories about their Primarch and the Emperor, because he was actually there. He also did go toe-to-toe with Magnus, and he was able to stall him long enough for like reinforcements to come. And then he fought him, and it's like, you know, if he probably had more ammunition, he probably would have lasted a heck of a lot longer too. He ran out of everything.
It took place during the first siege of Fenris, yeah. But
yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, anyways, Bjorn is woken up every few hundred years to tell the stories of the Space Wolves. He is their he is, quite frankly, anyways, we've talked to him a few times before, actually, when he's in his dream state. So he probably doesn't remember as much, but quite frankly, anyways, he is the historian of the Space Wolves. And like he's the perfect historian because he's the guy, anyways, that doesn't have to figure out anyways what was written down. He was actually there.
Yeah.
So he can go ahead and tell you. So one of my favorite lines of all time by Bjorn is, "The Emperor God, isn't that how the whole Horus Heresy thing got started?"
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So to tie back into Grimnar, anyways, he gets woken up because the Inquisition is laying siege to Fenris. So and Grimnar is not there. So they wake up Bjorn.
Yes.
So now the Inquisitor has to deal with Bjorn.
Well,
How's that go, Yuksen?
2 Inquisitors and a Grey Knight. Is there any more? I think those are the only 3 people, at least noted, that make it down there.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me remember the Grey Knight's name. I'm sorry about that. But one of the Inquisitors, her name is Annika. And then the guy who's in charge of everything, his name is Snarls.
The dick.
Yes. So eloquently put, Yuksen. But yes.
So they land, and then they see Bjorn show up, and the Annika, who actually was born on Fenris, sees him and immediately just starts weeping and getting on her knees because she realizes that, first of all, she knows who it is. Second of all, she actually realizes that he does actually exist. Because you do have to take into the fact originally the Fenrisians just see the Space Wolves as, I think they call them the Sky Warriors or something like that.
Sky or Thunder. Yeah, one of the two. But yeah.
So already there's this huge thing. And then seeing somebody who's just like, you realize, okay, he isn't just fake.
This is a man that fought with the Emperor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Primarchs. He was trusted friend and loyal to Lehman Russ. I mean, that bears some weight. It would be like for people on Terran 42 if you were taking a history class in high school and George Washington walked in. I mean, that's kind of the, holy crap, I know that guy. You know? Just looking down at the picture and then looking back up, and looking back down, and like, that's him. You know?
And so Inquisitor K, that's what I'm going to call him.
Kasnaros.
Is like trying to be all pompous and everything and say, I am the highest Inquisitor here, and, you know, I have the highest power, and I am the one in Bjorn. Just looks at him.
Where he actually says, and I'm the one that's in charge. And he gets about that far and realizes that everybody around him is literally like on their knees in front of this guy.
Yeah.
And not only that, even if it wasn't Bjorn, I mean, you're looking at a dreadnought that's like 5 feet away from you.
Yeah. And
might be worth having a little bit of respect for that.
And one that's skilled enough that it's able to not take somebody's head off and literally tilt it one way or the other.
Also, another thing about dreadnoughts is because they're as old as they are normally anyways, they're normally very cantankerous and very old manish. So, just on the sake of just, you know, hoping that you live, maybe talk to the guy with a little more, you know, respect.
So taking, well, let's just put it in this perspective. You know where somebody grabs somebody's face and tilts it one way or the other? Now imagine that, except for it's like a 6-foot long finger on either side. That can
really a finger. It's really more like a couple of knives. Yeah. I got you.
It can crush a tank, you know. So basically he says, yeah, I was there during the Emperor, you fool, basically. And you can basically fight us. You probably won't make it, but you can try fighting us. But on top of that, I'm not the person who could even give you Fenris if I wanted to. But have fun trying. And then that's when Grimnar shows up.
That Grimnar actually shows up in space.
And so Grimnar ends up, so that ends up breaking the meeting up, Grimnar showing up. And so Inquisitor K ends up at his
mind you,
ship.
anyways, Grimnar doesn't show up to the meeting. He actually shows up in space.
Yeah.
So everybody goes, oh crap, he's here. Get back to our spaceships. And Grimnar makes a beeline for Kasnaros' spaceship and actually rams it pretty much. Gets on board. And when they got back on board, if I recall right, they actually teleported Bjorn back up with them.
No,
I think that's how he made it up there.
No, he
actually go ahead.
So this fight occurs. Inquisitor K dies. Then it's starting to get to the point where a conflict between, I think it's the captain of the Grey Knights and Grimnar is actually about to really clash. And then
Grimnar is about to kill everybody on that bridge. That's what's going to happen. He's done. He's just like, I will murder everybody here.
A kind of ticked off Bjorn is teleported up there. One of the reasons why he's ticked off is because of the fact that one of the things that he hates is being teleported.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So the other thing, though, somewhere already has him pissed off.
Not only that, but he had to move away from Fenris. That's his place.
And so he ends up there and he just says, stop. It just like almost like pressing the pause button. Everybody just stops.
Which shows anyways how much respect Grimnar as being the Lord Wolf commander anyways has for Bjorn. He literally stopped what he was doing.
Yeah.
And Bjorn is just like, this is enough.
Yeah.
This guy was the problem. Congratulations, Logan, you killed him. We don't need to continue on anyways with the slaughter, because if you continue doing that, then the Imperium is going to have to actually react to this. More than just the Inquisition. I mean, he said it, so he literally said it in one word. Stop.
Yeah.
But calmed Grimnar down enough anyways that he realized what was going on. And that actually ended the Months of Shame, the ending anyways of the first Armageddon War. It's one of the coolest stories that is actually out there. But who's the next famous Space Marine chapter we should talk about?
That would be the Crimson Fists. The chapter master is Pedro Cantor, who are from, well, originally it was a spaceborne fleet, but then they got Rin's World. And then they almost lost Rin's World. But
so real quick anyways, are they Codex compliant?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit anyways about Pedro Cantor and the fall of Rin. That's probably one of the most famous things. Well, actually, why don't you actually start with the origins, because that way you get to talk about your favorite guy. Alexis Pollux.
Oh, okay. So after the Worst Heresy, there were the second foundings, and one of them is the Crimson Fist, and it was led by probably one of my top two favorite Imperial Fists, and that is Alexis Pollux, who is considered the biggest. I'm not sure if he is still considered the biggest, but he was big enough that Gilman didn't actually have to look down to look at him in the eye. But
Rogel Dorn did, which kind of tells you anyways that...
Who says that Rogel Dorn did?
Of course he did. It's Rogel Dorn. He looked down on everybody, other than Vulcan.
That's bad.
Who gave him a big old bear hug on Terra, which I just read about that, and it's awesome. It was definitely very much Rogel Dorn, just like, I'm going to be the stoic person that I normally am. And Vulcan shows up 100 yards away from him. He's like, hey, who wants a hug? I don't know. I don't do hugs. Ah, we're doing it anyways. He gives a big old bear hug. That's Vulcan for you, though. But
That's when you hear the squealing
about
of
him later.
the servos. It's like, no, too hard.
Yeah, the way this is described, anyways, is that Vulcan felt, anyways, the affection of his hug, anyways, coming back in kind, yet awkwardly. But so Pedro Cantor. Oh no, you were talking about Alexis Pollux.
So Alexis Pollux ended up getting all of the newer recruits, I believe is how it went when it came to when they split up everything.
Mm-hmm. During the Great Crusade, and especially during the Horus Heresy, he was considered, like we talked about actually when we talked about the Primarchs, he was the very calm left hand, anyways, of Rogel Dorn. He's the guy that told people, he calmed people down. Like Rogel Dorn would get super pissed. He'd be like, hey now, take a breath. Let's look at this logically.
Sigismund, don't go running up front. They what?
You do that, we'll kick you across the mountains. Yeah, kind of thing. And like I said before, anyways, Alexis Pollux should have been a Salamander, in my opinion, anyway.
He was also one of the humblest, too.
Yeah, he should have been a Salamander. But he wasn't. He was an Imperial Fist, and he really helped the Imperial Fist during that whole time. And then afterwards, anyways, the reason he helped them so well, anyways, that they gave him a chapter, pretty much, or Dorn did. And they're called the Crimson Fist because
the youngest ones too, which is also the sign of respect. Going, I can trust you with molding these people the right way. I mean,
and they're called the Crimson Fist because
it leads back to part of the one of the things that they did traditionally, I believe, before they split into the Crimson Fists, and I think the other chapters also was by Dorn and then Alexis slit their hands and then grasped each other's hand. That way, it was like the blood of the Primarch was in them.
And then every chapter master after that, anyways, shook the hand with somebody else, anyways, and it was done the same way.
Yeah,
hence the name Crimson Fist. But moving all the way forward, anyways, to Pedro Cantor.
He is the current chapter master.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us how he lost Ren's World to a bunch of unruly orcs? And what was his name? The Pyrotechnic of Hoo-Ha? I can't remember his name. He was
the Arsonist of Charodon.
Okay, there you go.
Who is
a crazy orc that loves fire. No, that's not going to work.
One of the biggest orcs on record. Okay, so Ren's World, first of all, they didn't predict how close the orcs were going to jump in because they were thinking, oh, well, when somebody warps in, they want to generally warp in far enough out that the gravity of different planets won't rip the majority of the ships apart. They didn't realize is these are orcs. They don't really care much about casualties, and so they end up going behind the original line that they had set up to stop the orcs. So they already had, I think, like a week or so lead on the blockade that was behind them. And it was just such a vast group that they were just able to send basically all of them down to Ren's World. Unfortunately, also one of the warheads that was supposed to be shot up into one of the ships actually malfunctioned either through Wa energy or some freak accident and so ended up blowing up their fortress, leaving like, I think, hey Zeckthar.
Yes?
How many of them were left after the bomb blew up in their fortress?
Not many. There was, I think it was like a squad worth, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But the saving grace was that he'd sent 2 companies anyways. He sent 2 companies to the capital of Ren before their the fortress got exploded. Yeah. So you had at least 2 companies that were still there, and the only people that survived it was like a handful of Space Marines, including Pedro Cantor. I can't remember the captain's name, but he was known as the Unkillable.
Cortez, I believe.
Cortez, yes. Cortez.
They all have very Hispanic names.
Yes, they're all Hispanic.
Cortez, Cantor.
Si, senor. Yeah. So they have to march all the way to these two companies that are in the capital city, which is being laid to siege by the orcs.
Right.
And they win.
Yeah.
Yay!
They win, but there's not many left by the time that they win.
They eventually win.
There's less than 100 of them or something like that.
Gilman, by the way, shows up at some point anyways, introduces the Primarch Space Marines with Pedro's like, sweet, we need a whole lot more people. And yeah, that's the Crimson Fist.
Yeah, their only saving grace is that one of the, I think it was one of the ships of their blockade was able to escape and bring help at the very last moment. So there's like 6 or 10 chapters that pop up, and
But Yuksen, we have to move on anyways to everybody's favorite guys. And that would be the Black Templars. Okay, not everybody's, but they're pretty famous. Now, the Black Templars, they actually don't have a planet. They are known as a
fleet-based.
Yes, fleet-based Space Marine chapter. They are, like we said, anyways, descendants of Rogel Dorn. Sigismund was their first chapter master. Their latest chapter master is Helbrecht. What's his first name again?
Oh, they actually aren't called chapter masters either. They're called
High
High Lord Marshal.
High Lord Marshal, yes. And their new High Lord Marshal, Helbrecht. What is his first name?
I can't remember. Everybody calls him Helbrecht. So
shows how much Yuksen cares about the Black Templar. He's kind of like me.
Yeah.
We're not big fans of them. Although they're to make note anyways, first off anyways, they're always on crusade. And one of those rules that I kind of mentioned anyways about only having 1,000 Space Marines, it gets kind of muddled with the concept of, well, if you're on crusade, you can have significantly more because you're going to have to replace them. So Sigismund, in all of his brilliant ideas anyways, said, you know what, we're going to be constantly on the crusade. So no one really knows how many Black Templar there actually are. It's been reckoned to everything from 1,000 Space Marines to 10 to 20,000 of them.
Oh no, nobody believes that there's only 1,000 of them. Are you kidding me?
That's what they keep telling people. Well, it's pretty close to 1,000. But regardless, so
for someone who's crusading thing, even Hell's Reach, they called it a crusade.
Right. So one thing you do need to know anyways about the Black Templars is that there are significantly more of them than every other legion or chapter other than probably, and this is also, you could definitely argue this anyways, the Space Wolves. But all the rest of them anyways, because they're all broken into these like 1,000 people, the Black Templar have significantly more. Now, they have also anyways taken a hold anyways, the Primarchs Space Marines. The only other, they're definitely non-compliant to the Codex Astartes because of, like I said anyways, this whole aspect of having significantly more Space Marines. The one guy, though, that I do want to mention here anyways is Grimaldus. If you haven't read the scribings of Hell's Reach, it's a good one to start with, especially anyways if you're just getting into Warhammer 40k. It's very well written. I love the book. I thought it was really good. It has
it's not High Lord Marshal, it's just High Marshal, but on top of that, apparently he doesn't have a first name. Because my records just show him as
Homer. I'm sure he does, but Grimaldus.
Nobody cares about his first name then.
There's a couple books with him. The first one is Hell's Reach, which is a great book. If you don't like reading books, or you can't read, then I would recommend going on YouTube and just typing that in. There is actually an entire movie that was done on YouTube that is the audiobook pretty much of Hell's Reach. That's how much anyways I'm saying anyways it's worth going in and watching or reading. It is, I would actually recommend reading it more, because there's some nuances that are in there anyways that aren't in the YouTube movie. But both of them were very well done. I don't know about you, Yuksen. Did you ever read Hell's Reach?
I think I did, but it was ages ago. So.
But you can agree with me, it was a good book, right?
From what I remember, yes.
Yeah, very well done.
Like I said, it was ages ago.
One of the things I like about it too, anyways, is it gives the perspectives of the people that are stuck in this siege on Armageddon on Hell's Reach. It gives the perspective of Grimaldus, this chaplain of the Black Templars, and it also gives the Salamanders who show up. It's just only for a couple chapters, but it's actually very interesting anyways, the vast difference between the Salamanders and the Black Templar. Makes it very interesting. The second book is also very good. I can't remember what it's called, but it has to do with the lions. Something lions. What is it? It's
Celestial Lions?
Celestial Lions, thank you, yeah. And their extermination by the Inquisition on Hell's Reach. Grimaldus shows up, figures out anyways that it's the Inquisition, not the orcs that's really killing them, and tries to save them, and actually does on Hell's Reach. But yes, the Black Templar, we did a whole month on them, and we obviously talked about them more when we talked about Armageddon, because they're very important during the Third War of Armageddon. But at the same time, anyways, both Yuksen and I aren't particular fans of the Black Templar, just simply because they're so we're more fans of Space Marines that really actually like humanity and think that humanity is actually important to the Empire. So you've got that side of it. It's like Salamanders, Space Wolves, Blood Angels. You got kind of that side anyways that are like defenders of humanity. A little lesser extent Ultramarines, but all of them are kind of sitting over there. And then you've got the other side, which is humanity is really actually what is holding the Imperium back, which is a weird concept to think about. But it's kind of the way a lot of these people think anyways, and that would be like the Black Templars, the Marines Malevolent, the Iron Hands, all these guys anyways are along those concepts. That's why we are not a big fan of them. I will say though that I will say out of all of the Space Marines, the Black Templars are probably the most, pardon my French, badass looking. They are pretty cool looking. But yeah, enough about the Black Templars. So the exact opposite of the Black Templars that we were just talking about, the Salamanders.
Yeah. They come from Nocturne. And their current chapter master is Tushon, who punched the Marines Malevolent. And everybody who knows that he punched one was just like, yes! Because the Marines Malevolent are, let's just put it this way. Okay, how do we put it this way? Black Templar go, I don't care about humanity. Marines Malevolent are, we will use it and annihilate humanity to get a job done.
Okay, so the way we described it at one point, we've described it a couple times this way, is that if you're down a hallway and you've got the Imperial Guard and a trenched machine gun, and he's trying to kill the people in front of him, and you've got three Space Marines that come in behind him. You've got the Salamander. Salamander will jump in front of the machine gun pit, try to shoot everybody down, and then advance forward to take out everybody in front of him. You have the Crusader, the Black Templar, who will run through the machine gun trench, stepping on everybody just to get to the enemy. So, I mean, the Guardsmen might live. Yeah. They might not. Doesn't really matter. They don't care. They're just going to run through it. Then you got the Marines Malevolent. They're at the back end anyways. They're going to throw a grenade down the hall. Just blow everybody up. Why? Because we don't care, you know?
Or lure them to the machine gun people, wait for them to actually be in the gun pit, and then throw the grenade.
Yes. Yeah. But we're talking about the Salamanders. Salamanders, like you said, anyways, they're from Nocturne. They are the sires of Vulcan.
Yeah.
And they are probably they're the greatest defenders of humanity. That's the best way to describe them, right?
Because they're the ones who specifically think people are the Imperium, not the Imperium has people.
I mean, Tushan saved Dante from the Black Rage with a hug. Because that's what he does. He's just like his father. Vulcan, anyways. Bring it in, big fella. I mean, that's how Vulcan kind of deals with things, and that's how the Salamanders kind of do. Well, at least on the Imperium side.
Yeah.
When you're not part of the Imperium, anyways, well, they deal with you with fire, explosions, and murder, and they're fairly good at it too.
Generally, heavy weapons.
Yes.
That make very big holes or very big dents.
When your light weapon is the flamethrower.
Yes.
You know, anyways, that they're bringing some heavy ordnance with them, and God bless them for it.
Yes.
So, moving on past them, anyways, we have the Minotaurs. Now, as opposed to all the chapters that we've talked about so far, who were first and second foundings, the Minotaurs are neither. They are actually part of, well, unconfirmed, but more than likely part of the 21st founding, also known as the Cursed 21st founding. Now, the 21st founding also had some other kind of unusual space marines in them, such as the Lamenters, who are from the Blood Angels, which we will not be talking about, but they're cursed because they have bad luck. Their chapter master right now is Asterion Moloch, who is ridiculous. They're all ridiculous. It is. Their curse was literally, anyways, is they get blood drunk. Incredibly violent chapter. Asterion Moloch is also one of the strongest space marines around. He's one of the few guys, anyways, I would say could go toe-to-toe with Tyberos, which is saying something. Yuksen's going to talk about him here in a bit, but they're most prolifically known, anyways, especially in the Dab War. Things were not going well for the Imperium, and then the Minotaurs showed up, and they really didn't care if humanity died. They were just going to kill everybody in front of them. It's kind of how the Minotaurs work.
And they're kind of run by the High Lords of Terra, aren't they?
They have a huge respect for the High Lords of Terra, and that's been a problem a couple of times. Like you mentioned, anyways. A few weeks ago when we talked about the Custodes, the Minotaurs showed up. They started working for the High Lords of Terra, and I say that in quotations because they were working for a particular branch of the High Lords of Terra that were really against Guilliman. So they even tried a coup using the Minotaurs. And then it turns out that the guys that were working with the Custodes actually killed all the guys that were in charge of people that were against Guilliman. And the Minotaurs realized that they had been duped. So they laid down their arms, and then they sailed off to help Guilliman fight a crusade. That's where they are now. But the other thing you got to remember too is that it's kind of also a joke with the Minotaurs on the aspect that the Minotaurs are run very Greek. And what I mean by that is that they use like hoplites. The aspect of that, anyways, they use heavy shields, big spears, or bolters, anyways, and they march forwards towards somebody until everything in front of them, anyways, is just paste. As opposed to kind of the Roman aspect of like the Ultramarines, the way they wage war. But that's enough of the Blood Angel or the Minotaurs. Yuksen, could you talk to us anyways about the Blood Angels? That's what I was getting to. Where are they from, by the way?
Blood Angels are from Baal, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
It must be noted that they have the oldest chapter master, Louis Dante.
Luis Dante.
I've heard Louis and Louis.
Good old Louis. He's over 15,000 years old. No, he's not.
Oh,
he's over 1,500 years old, though. He's an old boy. And like we said before, anyways, Grimnar's probably the second. This kind of explains it, anyways. If I recall right, Grimnar is, I think we averaged it out. I think he's somewhere between like 700-800 years old.
Yeah.
So he's like half the age of Dante. And that kind of tells you how old Dante is. And anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I kind of feel bad for Dante. Just over that.
He really wants to die. But he can't. Because he's just too badass. Pardon my French. Sorry, go ahead.
Well,
tell us about the Blood Angels.
He's has this duty-bound thing. I gotta do it. It's my job. But
he's a Space Marine. I mean, that's the thing about all Space Marines, anyways. There is no retirement program for the Space Marines. It is, you just keep doing this until you die. You keep fighting the Imperium. You keep fighting the enemies of the Imperium until you die. It's not like the Custodes. The Custodes actually have a retirement program.
Yeah.
Space Marines don't. You are used until you are used up. Sad, but that's the way it works.
Yep.
And Dante really wants to be used up.
Chapter Master.
We'll say, okay, so real quick here, anyways, as you're gathering your thoughts, anyways, about the Blood Angels. Tushan. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, anyways. Tushan is showing up to, they show up on this planet, him and Dante and a bunch of his followers, and Tushan and a bunch of his followers, and they're going to exchange gifts. This is like an old wartime thing, anyways, that they started on the second war of Armageddon. And they show up, and Tushan and Dante, by the way, Tushan is actually one of the youngest chapter masters. And he's talking with Dante, who's one of the oldest. And he's really concerned about, leading his troops. He doesn't know if he's doing it right because they had this whole traitorous thing that took place on Nocturne while he was gone, and he was really upset about it because he's like, I should be able to leave my planet, and chaos doesn't just pop up there, And Dante kind of explains to him anyways, like, well, it's kind of evil and everybody, you gotta work with people. It's probably the best way to describe it. And they end up in this temple, and Tushan ends up giving Dante, I believe it anyways, it was a salamander skinned hided cloak. And the guy who's responsible for giving it to him anyways actually explains the history of this cloak with Nocturne language, which means that he does the dance of the smithy, which is really cool, by the way. I mean, it's just like he's got this big plate mail in front of just covering his chest, and he's got two hammers, and he starts yelling and dancing and like banging it and rhythmically anyway, so that it's like moves with the dance. And then, which by the way also perturbs the Blood Angels because this looks incredibly barbaric, because it's definitely not like very Roman or Imperial, but Dante likes it. Dante is just like, yeah, I get it, right on, ancestors.
Culture.
Yeah, culture. Yeah, right on culture. Yeah. He when it's all done anyways, and they're actually watching this side by side, and Dante actually leans over and he says, what language is this? And Tushan's like, this is the language of our ancestors on Nocturne. He goes, it's guttural, but it's beautiful. I mean, Dante kind of gets it here, And then Dante was going to give it was like this scroll of ancient history. And unfortunately, anyways, when the scroll was broken and ripped open, chaos like shows up and attacks the librarian who's reading the script, and he turns kind of like chaos infused, which like all the blood angels like go into attack mode, and then immediately after that, anyways, they all have this problem with the black rage, or not black rage. The what's the other one? Bloodthirst.
Yeah.
So they'll have this problem with the bloodthirst, except for Dante, who's a guy that has a problem with the black rage. He's one of the few guys that actually can get out of it. Yuksen's going to explain this here in half a second. And they end up attacking the Salamanders. And the Salamanders, anyways, are just trying to fight them back. And Tushan gets to Dante. And literally, okay, I said before, anyways, he saved him by the power of a hug. It wasn't really a hug. It was more along the lines of Dante was trying to like bite the crap out of Tushan, and Tushan literally picks him up, shakes him a few times so that he loses his weapon, and then as he's looking at him, anyways, he gets real close, not close enough that Dante can bite him. He goes, "Calm yourself, Dante. It's me, Tushan. Tushan, your friend." And it calms him down enough at that point, anyways, that Tushan or Dante kind of gets a hold of himself. And then he calms down the rest of his blood angels. And then, anyways, he comes back and he's very embarrassed about the whole situation. He's like, sorry about, like trying to bite your neck off. Kind of thing. And that's when Tushan, anyways, gives him a big bear hug. Anyways, he's like, "We are brothers." Kind of thing. And it's perfect, anyways, for who both chapters are. But if you want the more extended one, anyways, I actually did a flux on it. It's fantastic. The concept, anyways, that we have the vampire was tamed by a hug, a big bear hug, and it's done by a salamander. I mean, they shouldn't have been called the salamanders. They should have been called the teddy bears, but they couldn't use that because then Chaos would have been like, those pansies. And they would actually, it would be kind of funny now to think about it.
But
those pansies, the teddy bears. Who are we fighting right now? Run away! It's the teddy bears. Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah, it's one of my favorite stories of all time when it comes to the Salamanders and the Blood Angels. But could you, at least before we move on, anyways, describe like the Red Thirst and the Black Rage?
Okay, so the Black Rage is a psychological effect that happens generally over time. It's like unavoidable. There have been very few that have been able to come out of it or actually just survived it to begin with. It was created from, what is it?
The psychic echo of Sanguinius' death.
Yeah. And so when it finally takes over, it basically what flashes in their mind is basically the last moments of Dante. So they're facing off, or they believe they're facing off against Horus.
Sanguinius, not Dante, but yeah.
Sanguinius. And so they just go crazy. And
so they feel like they are Sanguinius. And yeah.
Yes. And just hope that Astaroth isn't nearby.
And there's very few, anyways. I think recorded wise, anyways, there's been like 3 or 4 that have been able to come out of the Black Rage and remain sane.
Yes.
Normally, what ends up happening is that they end up in a death company, I believe they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah, they end up in a death company, so they can still continue to serve the Emperor, but they're not sane at that point.
Yeah.
Ironically, to give you an aspect, though, anyways, is that there was a death company on a particular world. I can't remember what it was called. And it was Abaddon is one of his Black Crusades. And he ended up fighting this death company of blood angels. And, I mean, he exterminated all of them. But he found that they fought so well. It's one of those weird things about Abaddon, anyways. He has this weird code of honor. But he found that they fought so well that instead of like stacking their skulls to corn or something like that, he actually laid them all out anyways in a ceremonial like tome or circle, and then let their bodies alone. He's like, they fought well. They deserve, at least anyways, respect for that in death. Kind of tells anyways how even the enemy thinks of the Blood Angels. But we will be talking actually more about the Blood Angels next month. Thanks to Digpig. The next guys we're going to talk about aren't really red. They're more blue. Some would call them the Smurfs.
Ah, yes.
The Ultramarines. Now, we're not going to talk about Papa Smurf. We already talked about him enough.
Yep.
We're going to talk about his boy, though, Marnie Cal, also known as Marnius Calgar. Marnius Calgar is considered one of the greatest heroes of all time. He's the guy, anyways, that when we were talking about the Xenos, and we were talking about the shards of Cain, you know, like literally the shards of a god that stand like 150 feet tall.
Not that tall.
Okay, 100 feet. They're big. They're huge. 100 feet tall. They can storm fortresses by themselves. They're the avatar of Cain. Well, anyways, they came across good old Marnie Cal, and he punched one of them, and it killed it. Yeah, he's that guy. Marnie Cal has got, okay, so let's put it this way. In the tomes of Macrog, there are whole history books all for the Ultramarines, all for the chapter masters of the Ultramarines. Marnie Cal has a whole wing designed for him and all the stuff he's done.
Right.
He's Marnie Cal. I mean,
he's the MC. Sorry.
He's Papa Smurf. No, he can't be Papa Smurf because, well, no, I guess he's Papa Smurf and then there's Grandfather Smurf. That's probably the best way of describing it.
G-Pop.
Yeah, G-Pop. He's also the one, anyways, that helped bring back G-Pop. So, yeah, Marnie Cal is the greatest Ultramarine ever. And there are quite a few Ultramarines that everybody knows. The Ultramarines, as we've talked about before anyways, are probably the most numerous, the most well-known. The reason why I say the most numerous, technically they're not. They're the same as everybody else. They've only got 1,000 in there. But at the same time anyways, like Yuksen said, 18 second foundings?
Yep.
Yeah, so all those guys have had other foundings too anyways, and they all keep to the same credence of the Ultramarine. So, most of them do at least. There are a few wild black sheep, but...
As is the case. It's a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, that's just kind of the way it works. But they all kind of funnel back to the Ultramarines. They are the poster child of Space Marines. That's probably the best way to describe them, right?
Yeah.
They're not like super crazy. They are your standard Space Marine. That's the best way probably to describe them, right?
It's the way that I've heard it described before, it's kind of like almost every single legion had a specific role specialty that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily have that, but they also don't have any negatives.
They were there to fill the gap.
They're good at everything. They aren't great necessarily at certain areas, but they aren't bad at anything either.
They were the logistics staple of your standard military dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry for all of you Ultramarine fans out there, but that's what they are. I mean, they're not like super great at melee combat. They're not bad at it either, but they're not great. They're not great at artillery. They're not bad at it though either. They are literally your most rounded Space Marine.
Right.
They're good at all of it. They're not great at all of it, and they're not terrible at any of it.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to describe them. Okay. Marnie Cal, before we move on though, Marnie Cal is probably, when you think of chapter masters, I mean, the two guys that I normally plug in and that I think of the greatest anyways is Logan Grimnar, and Luis Dante.
Yeah.
But really close behind them is Marnie Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of anybody that would go in front of him. After those two and in front of him, I mean, I'm sure Hermes would say, well, what about the Dark Angels guy? Which we will talk about later, but no, I wouldn't. Marnie Cal is one of the greatest heroes of all time. And he's got two giant... That's the other thing I love about him. Is what are his weapons? Well, he's got some storm bolters, and then he's got two power fists. That way he can hit you with two hands instead of just one. He's a guy that goes into combat punching people. I mean, and does well doing it. He's that good. You got anything else about Marnie Cal or the Ultramarines?
No, not really.
We're moving on to the more mysterious guys anyways, and that would be the Space Sharks, or also known as the Carcharodons. Yuksen, if you would.
Carcharodons, depending on how you pronounce it.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind.
So, they're Chapter Master, or I want to say Shadow Lord?
Shadow Lord, I believe that is the correct term, yes.
Yeah.
Same thing as a Chapter Master.
It's Tiberius the Red Wake.
A lot of Space Marines, the Chapter Master's got a different title to him. Like we talked about the Space Wolves. I mean, technically, they don't even follow the Codex Astartes, but the Great Wolf, or the Carcharodons is Shadow Lord. Shoot, the Dark Angel. Dark Angel's got a different one, too. We haven't talked about that.
Grandmaster.
Grandmaster.
Supreme
Grandmaster. Sorry. And then, Black Templars, theirs is a High Marshal, right?
Yeah.
Or Grand Marshal.
High Marshal, I believe.
High Marshal. But they all pretty much mean the same thing. Chapter Master. Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, and their Chapter Master, Shadow Lord is Tiberius, the Red Wake. Who, if I recall right anyways, is considered, like, in 41st millennium aspect, the largest Space Marine out there, right?
That's living, yeah.
He's huge. It's the concept that he could look Vulcan straight in the eye. That's the way I've heard it described. I mean, that might be hyperbole, but
I think that's hyperbole.
Same time, anyways, he is known to be quite large.
Yes. The Carcharodons are definitely not compliant. I've done voxes on them, by the way, for people who want to know more about them. They're also nicest group either.
They're also like the Black Templars, where they don't have a planet. They're fleet based, correct?
Yes. They take what they want. Really, they're only Space Marine in name only, almost. They're almost that bad when it comes to it.
Yeah, they do fight for the Imperium.
Yeah. They are better than the Marines Malavent. They don't purposely kill off humans. Mind you, they don't necessarily care either way, but...
So when I was talking about the Minotaurs, and how I mentioned anyways, they become blood drunk, and they're considered incredibly violent even for Space Marines. The Carcharodons, correct me if I'm wrong here anyways, the Carcharodons could put that to the test, correct?
They don't really suffer from any sort of bloodlust per se.
But they're incredibly violent.
They are violent, yes.
And as we mentioned anyways, the Space Wolves are kind of like Space Vikings. These guys really are Space Vikings. What they really were. The Space Wolves are like what people in Terran 42 picture Vikings to be. The Carcharodons are what they really were.
Yeah. Minus
show up on a planet, they pillage it, they murder everybody there, they take all their stuff, and then they leave.
Without drinking.
Or, minus the drinking.
Or happiness, for that matter.
I was going to say the raping, but yeah. Either or. The benefits, I guess, of it anyways, because they take all the people and turn them into more Space Marines, or all the young boys.
Yeah,
on a planet. They have, that's kind of the way that they what do they call it? It's called reaping or something like that.
They have two different lords. One of them's called, I believe, the Reaper Lord, which they have. I believe they're called Red Tithes.
Red Tithes.
There's
Sorry,
red tithes and then gray tithes. So the gray tithes is technology based. The red tithes is
people based.
yes. We take the people. For anybody that's seen Space King, the very first scene, yes, that's what they do. They come down on a planet. They do not really ask anybody. They just take.
Yeah.
If anybody asks, they go, well, we got this thing that says we can do it. So you're out of luck.
Mind you, anyways, a lot of times that is on worlds that are not Imperial. The ones with the Imperial worlds that they show up anyways, they take all this stuff, but they show up to the governor and they show him, you know, it's like...
They show him things saying we're taking everything.
It's literally a note. It's like it says, we're taking everything. Signed, the Emperor. Or the High Lords of Terror. I mean, Terra. It's scribbled out.
Nice and versa.
But it's authentic. It is actually very authentic. The High Lords of Terra have approved this. Now, mind you, anyways, the Carcharodons are smart enough, anyways, not to, you know, like, try this on a world that the High Lords wouldn't be okay with.
Well, that plus
or
the
other people wouldn't be okay with. Like, for instance, if the Carcharodons showed up on Baal and said, we're going to take all of your stuff, that wouldn't work.
No, they don't do it to other Space Marine chapter worlds. We can say that.
They find
But
the
of course-
weakest and saddest people in the planet, and they kick the crap out of them and take all of their stuff. Makes them so much better.
Well, to be fair, also, they mainly operate in the very fringes of the Imperium, too. So it's like, there are no real, you know, well, we have the high technology close to the place. Then we have the villagers with the pitchforks. Those are the only people that are really near.
Well, okay, not only that, but, I mean, they do actually deal with the outskirts, like you said, anyways, the outskirts, the fringes of the Empire. So a lot of the places that they do raid simply aren't really actually compliant with the Empire. So the Empire's really okay with that.
Yeah.
They also, anyways, grab people from other, like, from pirates. One of the stories, anyways, that we did, anyways, on a short box was, he was the, what did you call him, anyways? The Reaper Lord?
Beryl Shar, who is the current Reaper.
And he was tasked with gathering more Gene Sons. And he was actually getting it through, crap, I can't remember what their name is. They're another one of those weird...
I want to say Blood Claws, but I'm not 100% sure.
Blood Claws, that sounds right, yeah.
Or Raven Claws, something like that. They are not a Traitor Legion, a Renegade.
Which is really weird because there are very few of those.
We need to specify there are 3 different sections, loosely divided up. We got the Loyalists, which are, you know, Ultramarines and
Space Wolves, even those that are Codex compliant, or non-compliant anyways, but are still loyal.
Then there's the Renegades, which are the ones that, well, the Imperium considers them traitors.
They are traitors to the Imperium.
But they haven't necessarily gone to Chaos yet. So
Correct.
they are not Chaos Space Marines.
And then thirdly,
Yeah.
that everybody knows, your good old-fashioned favorites, the Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah.
Who would be like the Emperor's children, the guys, anyways, that betrayed the Emperor during the Horus Heresy. And then those guys, those were the original legions. They all got, like we've said before, anyways, they get chased into the the Eye of Terror during the Great Scouring. And most of them, anyways, ended up breaking up and becoming these, like, weird bands of Space Marines that have, like, they were originally part of these Chaos Legions, but they become their own thing.
War bands.
War bands, yeah. So, quite frankly, anyways, while Gilliman broke everybody up with the Codex Astartes, the Chaos Space Marines kind of did that by themselves, just simply because of chaos. They just wanted to do their own thing. But before we get into the Black Shields, you got anything else, anyways, on the Carcharodons?
Now, I guess the best way to look at them is they're what's the name? They're almost privateers, is what they almost are.
I would also mention, though, that the Carcharodons are also very cold. calculated, and they are incredibly violent too.
And
for Space Marine chapter,
they're quiet when they attack. They don't like yell or
probably fought
shut
a
up
few necrons in the
commands.
day and went, that sounds like a great idea. Just don't say anything. It'll scare the crap out of everybody. Okay. Moving on to the next group. The next group, the Black Shields. We do have to talk about the Black Shields. So like you said, anyways, there's this small group anyways that both sides really don't work with well. Well, Chaos kind of works with them just simply because they won't work with the Loyalists. And that would be Renegade Space Marines. And the majority of them are known as Black Shields. Now, there's a couple different versions of Black Shields that you'll hear a boatload of times. There is actually a Loyalist version of the Black Shields, and they are always in the Death Watch, which we will get to on here next time when we talk about the other branches of the Imperium. But it's literally, anyways, what it means is that when you join the Death Watch, you have the option of not telling people where you're from, what Loyalist chapter you're from. And so on your pauldron, instead of having, an insignia of where you're from, it's just a black plate.
Yeah.
That is normally, anyways, somebody that does that is because they have, they've shown up and they've figured they've disgraced themselves. So they don't want people knowing where they're from. Probably the best way to describe it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the traditional Black Shield. And the traditional Black Shield, what started it was during actually the Horus Heresy. So we brought up occasionally the Chaos Space Marines, at least the ones anyways that originally turned traitor during the Horus Heresy. Now, during that time, the traitor legions, at least their Primarchs, understood that they kind of had to get rid of some of their Space Marine legions because, quite frankly, they were still going to be loyal to the Emperor. So, a large majority of them being the World Eaters, the Sons of Horus, the Emperor's Children, and the Death Guard, all four of those set up this trap on Esteban III that eventually became known as the Atrocity of Esteban III, where they pretty much exterminated all of the Loyalist Space Marines that were within their regiments. Now, the Black Shields come in here because not all of them made it to Esteban III to be killed off by the traitor legions. Some of them, obviously, were very vastly off in different parts of the galaxy. And when they heard about what happened on Esteban III, they decided that they were going to revolt against their traitor's brothers. Now, mind you, anyways, they also had the understanding of realizing that coming back to Terra and going, hey guys, just letting you know, we're still good guys. You're cool with that, right? Probably wouldn't fly. So a lot of them ended up just kind of fading off into inexistence. A lot of them ended up turning mercenary. Other ones, anyways, became pirates or renegade Space Marine legions. But all of them ended up, to save themselves the trouble, ended up painting their pauldrons black. So therefore you couldn't tell anyways what Space Marine Legion they came from. And some of them have actually kept on with their tradition, so you still actually can see Black Shields today. A lot of them also ended up becoming, going into the Eye of Terra, becoming Warp Chaos Legions as well. But the majority of the ones that became Renegades remained Renegades. Which means, anyways, according to this is the other thing, anyways, that I think Yuksen, anyways, will agree with me, anyways, that Renegades kind of get a bad rap on, is that the Loyalists just assume because they're Renegades, they will fall to Chaos.
Yeah. And they tend to because they're treated as if they are Chaos Space Marines.
Right. So a lot of times, yeah, it's almost prophetic, anyways, on the aspect of how it happens, but it's not always the case. So to make this simple for you guys, anyways, that are just kind of new, there is this like third little margin in here called Renegade Space Marines. So you get normally, anyways, Loyalists, and you have Chaos. But there's this little tiny group called Renegades, and Renegades normally, anyways, just kind of do whatever they want. Normally, anyways, that means mercenaries or pirates. Really, that's kind of what it boils into, right? Yeah. I mean, you do get the occasional Black Shields that will show up anyways on a Rogue Traders group. To me, anyways, they're actually fairly interesting, the Black Shields are, along with Renegades in general, because they don't follow the loyalists, but they do follow, and they don't follow chaos.
Right.
To me, anyways, I find them fairly interesting. What about you?
I find them interesting as well.
All right. Well,
we should probably move on to the Dark Angels now.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to our last guys, anyways, the Dark Angels. Now, the Dark Angels, again, Hermes' favorite. We have to always plug that in anyways because we love Hermes, and Hermes is awesome. And he loves the Dark Angels. No, necessarily we do. They're interesting. I'll give them that.
Okay.
They're fairly secretive. One of the reasons why they're secretive is because of the fact that Lionel Johnson disappeared at the end of the Horus Heresy, and they didn't want to tell anybody about that. And they especially didn't want to tell anybody that Caliban, the place they were from, turned to chaos, because they were very worried, which very much makes sense, especially during the time of the Great Scouring, that if they went, hey, by the way, our home planet turned to chaos. We took care of it. But, yeah, just want to let you know. That wouldn't have flown very well during the Great Scouring. They probably would have been exterminated.
I mean, if Lionel Johnson had said they turned to chaos, but we wiped everybody out, but he wasn't there, so
yeah, exactly.
You didn't have a Primarch able to raise his hand and say, "I took care of it."
You're 100% correct there, Yuksen. If the Lion was still alive, he could have done that, and everybody would have died.
He was alive. If he was there.
If he was there, yeah. You know what I mean. At this point, anyways, they are also technically non-compliant in a fleet chapter. Fleet chapter is relative because they make their home on the Rock. The Rock is what's left of Caliban,
which they annihilated themselves, not entirely on purpose.
Yeah, if you want to know more about that, we talk about it with the Lion. But in today's aspect, they are run, their chapter master, or sorry, what's he called again? Grand Supreme Master of all that is, or something along those lines.
I believe it's Supreme Grand Master is what I want to say.
And his name is Azrael. And Azrael is actually pretty cool. He's in a tough spot, though, because the Lion has popped back up again. So he wants to fly in the line and figure out what's going on, but at the same time, he's got to keep all these secrets from the Imperium. So he's kind of in a tough spot here. We'll see anyways how that turns out, especially with the Lion, because no one knows what the Lion's going to do, because as we've talked about many times before, the Lion is not a people person.
Which means he doesn't tell people much either.
Anything. Yeah.
So they learn from their father. Don't say anything.
They still have that kind of weird, quirky beef with the Space Wolves. That's not really a beef, but it is. If you want to know more about that, you can listen to
them really don't like each other.
Earlier stuff, yeah. But what do you think of the Dark Angels?
I think they're very like Terran 42 Knights of the Round Table sort of aspect to them.
As soon as you said that, anyways, I was just thinking Terran 42.
Knights of the Round
Table. Our shoes are full renewal. Women in tights who work in pints. Yeah. I have to push the Premolot. And we can't go back to Camelot. It's a silly place. Very much like what even Russ would say. We can't go back to Caliban. It's such a silly place. You got two coconuts and banging them together. Sorry.
Well, what if two sparrows lifted the coconut?
What do you mean? African or European? Where did you get the coconuts? Sorry. Yes, every time I think of the Dark Angels, I think of Terran 42's Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and it just cracks me up every time.
Until you get to Asmodai, and then you go, that person should have been punted into another.
Okay, so sure, let's talk about him.
He is a interrogator chaplain. So chaplains, we've already at least somewhat discussed that we don't like chaplains very much.
I'm not a big fan of chaplains, yeah. Which is weird because actually, quite frankly, anyways, Terran 42 wise, military chaplains are like some of the best people you could ever meet. That's in Terran 42, though.
Yeah, and that's
In
like
the
Imperial
40K
Guard chaplains.
Galaxy, anyways, the Astartes chaplains are horrible individuals. They just hate fun. That's really what it boils down to. If you found a coin that you like flipping and making wagers with your friends on, the chaplain will murder you because you had a coin and then take your coin.
Or
that nobody
just
else
beat
falls
you
with
on
the
the head a
heresy of the
while,
coin.
saying, "How dare you have a coin?" And then that's punishment. We'll beat you like 20 times on top of the head. Now you can go. Okay,
So yeah,
the
that's
Dark
just regular
Angels-
chaplains.
yes.
What you're talking about is an interrogator chaplain, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
whole new level of dicgishness.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
They're
go
the
ahead,
ones
go ahead.
that, if they think you know anything about where they called the Forgotten,
The
the
fallen.
Fallen, they will torture you until you maybe give up the information or you die. Oh, and if they actually capture a fallen, they torture them until they give in or die.
Let me see if I got this correctly. Anyways, an interrogator chaplain is not only a chaplain, as we've already established. Anyways, chaplains just hate fun. This is a person, anyways, that will torture you for having fun, or just having the concept of knowing where fun is. They will torture you.
Right.
And Asmodai is the worst.
Yeah, puts this into overdrive. He's like, well, we should kill this entire unit. Why? Because they didn't respond in time. By how much? Like fractions of a second. They are defective.
Azrael,
Fraction of a second.
the Supreme Grand Master, has many a times, anyways, pondered the thought, anyways, should I kill Asmodai or keep him around? That's how dark this dude is. The Grand Supreme Master, anyways, is contemplating whether or not to murder you for the chapter's sake.
And unfortunately, he does enough good to barely offset that.
Yeah. He's the guy, anyways, that he heard in the grand halls of the rock. He heard laughter from the 7th chapter. And he thought that was terrible. So he censured them to, or 7th company. Yeah, sorry, the 7th company. He thought that was so terrible that he censured them for, what was it, 10 years? That they could not speak unless they were talking about battle, and specifically during battle. Because the laughter in that place was so terrible.
Yeah.
This is that guy.
Yeah. And on that note,
okay, yeah, we by the way did a Vox anyways that Asmodai took up a majority of it anyways because we hated him so much. But yes, on that sad note, we are out of time. Now join us next week as we actually finally get to the rest of the Imperium. We will be talking about the Astra Militarum, the Inquisition, and the Mechanicum.
fantastic. But for those of you who enjoyed our little show, could you please be so kind as to push that subscribe, like, or follow button? And if you wish to help us expand our work on 40k lore, by all means, support us by joining our membership program on our YouTube channel, Tales of Asharaka. Right now we have 4, but we could use more.
Hey, that rhymes.
Oh, and don't forget to purchase the Yorin Heist, sold wherever ebooks are sold.
Yes, and most importantly, have a great day. And
Until next time, this is Zeckthar,
And Yuksen.
signing off.